Hey, I am back. So we're going to get started here in just a few moments. I want to give a few people some time to jump on here. I won't be on here long, I promise. But I did a live this morning and I got a couple of inboxes and I was like, oh, this would be a good conversation to, have on live and, put out there, whatever. So I wanted to jump on live while I'm in the midst of getting some other work done. I figured I'd take a few moments to, jump on here really quick and, talk about what we're going to talk about. So, somebody had sent me an inbox because they were saying in your other video, you talked about, residual income. You talked about residual bills, and so they wanted to, they were just asking me a couple of questions and I had mentioned the cash flow quadrant and all of that stuff. And so I was just like, okay, cool. This would be a great conversation to just kind of put it out there for anybody who may be wondering, anybody that may be unsure, or anything like that. So if you're watching, more than likely you follow me on social media or somebody might have shared this feed. But for those who don't know me, my name is Camille Westmoreland, originally from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, currently reside in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I do a lot in the financial education arena, dealing with foreign exchange, cryptocurrencies, business development, also business building, and so forth and so forth. And so one of the things that I talked about earlier in my live from this morning, I was talking about how many people tend to have one stream of income. And most of the time that one stream of income is a job. And there's nothing wrong with having a job. As I said before, there's nothing wrong with having a job. The challenge comes in when the job is your only source of income. And so one of the things that I said this morning that I really want people to grasp is that you're living a very risky life if your job is your only source of income, okay? And that doesn't mean go get 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs so that you can fund stuff. But now it's really about working smarter and not harder. And so one of the things that I talked about earlier today as well, and this is going to all come together, but one of the things I talked about earlier today as well is that being wealthy and positioning yourself for wealth and positioning yourself for legacy is hard. It's very challenging, right? But one of the things that I learned as well is that being broke is hard too. And so for each of us, it's really up to us at the end of the day to decide what our heart is going to be. And so, for me, I had to really get out of my comfort zone because, I was stuck in the idea of I did everything right. And then I realized that working my job, I was not achieving the life that I desired. I wasn't achieving the goals that I desired. But I also didn't have a desire to get a second job or get a third job. Why? Because the reality is when you're an employee, you have to exchange time for money. So the more jobs you have, of course, the more money you make, but you don't really have the opportunity to enjoy the money that you make. And so I'm not knocking anybody that has multiple jobs, but what I'm saying is it's definitely a time and it's definitely a season for us to really think outside of the box, if you will, where money is concerned and the creation of money is concerned and so forth. And so the reality is if you're an adult, you have bills every month that are residual, right? Meaning they're going to be there on like clockwork every single week. But when I got a revelation on residual income, it changed my life. And the reason that I say that is because I made a decision to do what most people don't want to do, I've started to be able to live a life that most people may not be able to live. And what do I mean by that? I don't have to punch a clock. I could sleep in if I wanted to. I'm not, because I have major goals. But the reality is money is coming residually because of work I put in the past. Trust me, I was an employee before. 7 years ago is when I fired my boss for the last time, and I have not been back. I have not been an employee in 7 years, right? I was able to position myself to determine what I wanted my income to be. But not only just determining what my income was going to be, but actually putting in the work to make it come to pass. And so that's what I mean when it says pick your heart, because it's hard to be an entrepreneur because you're working harder than the person that's an employee. Why? Because when I was an employee, I showed up for my 8 to 5:30 or 8 to 4:30 and did work and sometimes slacked out, but I knew my check was going to be the same regardless. But when you start getting into the field of entrepreneurship, where you're positioning yourself for big business, where you have systems and people working for you, like your workload is 10x. But then sometimes people don't like that. But that's where the mindset shift has to come in. I had to change my mind shift from an employee to a business owner. Because the reality is, and I'm going to show y'all this. Let me actually pull it up because I briefly wanted to talk about this right here. You won't see my face, but you can see this and hear my voice. But this is the cash flow quadrant that Robert Kiyosaki talks about. All of us fall into one of these ways that money is created. At one particular point in my life, I was on the left side, employee. My active work determines my income. So time equals money. Also, as a self-employed, the amount of active work determines your income. So many people may tend to leave a job. They may tend to leave a job and say, I'm going to be my own boss, right? But the reality is many people who leave a job to be their own boss, they still have to show up to work. So let's just say I left my job. Like, okay, so for example, when I first left my job, I was a licensed life insurance agent. I'm still a licensed agent. However, it's up to me to do the appointments. It's up to me to sit down and do, the analysis. It's up to me to, write the policies and get all of that stuff done. So if I don't show up and write policies, I wasn't getting paid. So while I didn't have to check in with somebody, I had to have the willpower to keep showing up. I had to have the willpower to keep pushing to get these deals done in order to get a paycheck. And there was nothing wrong with that, but that was short-lived for me. Why? Because I was looking for more time freedom, right? And so even as a trader, and I will say this because many people who follow me are actually traders, trading foreign exchange and so forth. Trading is a self-employed act. I love to trade, but because it's a self-employed act, meaning if I don't show up to trade, I'm not making money. I only commit to maybe an hour to an hour and a half of trading a day, if that. Why? Because I'm so much more focused on creating passive income. I'm looking to be on the right side of the quadrant. So many of you all who may be watching this live, whether it's the replay or you may be even tuning in now, you may be asking yourself, like, what can I do? How can I position myself to create residual income to cover my residual bills? And many of you may have heard of different business opportunities or home-based businesses or ways you can position yourself. And you may feel like, that's not my niche. That's not what I do. That's not my passion. But sometimes things will become available to you and it may not be your passion, but it can help position you to fund your passion and to pursue your passion at a greater level. So that's the mindset that you have to think from. So when I got into the space of business building and big business and having systems of people working on my behalf so that I could create passive cash flow, it did not look the way that I thought it was going to look. The way that I thought it was going to look, because anybody who knows me, I'm really big on systems and structure and so forth. So in one particular point, I saw myself, starting my own virtual call center. I was partnering with a company that was helping me get everything set up. But then all of the excess training and all these different pieces and parts that went into it, it was still putting a greater demand on myself than what I wanted at that particular point in time. And so a real passion of mine is helping businesses to position themselves, helping businesses to flourish, helping businesses at a greater level. But for where I was at this particular point of my life, it was just like, that's going to be a slow progression. That's something that you can profit from, but that's slow. What I was needing was fast and now. And so I kept my antennas up, right? So when I had gotten an opportunity to look into something else that didn't look like something I would do, I was like, shoot, it doesn't matter, because this is going to get me to where I'm trying to get a lot faster. And that's the mindset that you have to have. And so in doing that, you guys, in this particular space, I was able to make more money. I've been able to make more money than I ever made working for somebody else. You see what I'm saying? I have been able to still delve into my passion while still having a bag secured on the other side. You see what I'm saying? And so now, as I mentioned, I have not been an employee for 7 years, but now having residual income lined up that's still ever increasing, my residual bills are covered. Because if you think about it, what happens with most people? If they're working a job and they're not making enough money, what do? They go get a second job. They go get a third job. I literally met a girl a couple of months ago, and she was literally working 5 jobs to make ends meet across the board. And I'm like, this is not how this is supposed to be happening. But this is what I really want you to understand. Like when COVID hit last year, it was a decade worth of jobs was wiped out when COVID hit. A lot of jobs in the travel industry. And so that's why I said what I said earlier, that if your job is your only source of income, then you're living a very risky life. Because just like many people, they did not think that the travel industry would tank. They thought they were secure, just to find out that they were not secure. And then they were not in a position to be able to pay their bills. And I hate to say it, but even with everything happening with COVID right now, they have all these moratoriums and things in place where people can't be foreclosed, or people can't be evicted, or, all these different things. But once those things lift, those landlords and loan people and all of that stuff, they will legit be able to foreclose. They'll be able to evict you. They'll be able to do anything. Because the reality is, some people, because of mindset, they just know I can't be kicked out, so I'm not paying nothing. But once those moratoriums lift, there may not be no grace there. That's going to be up to that lender. That's going to be up to that landlord, right? And so we never want to put ourselves in a position to where that could be our reality. We always should position ourselves to think long-term, to think legacy. When I had an opportunity to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, when my money mentor shared that book with me, when I had an opportunity to look at that cash flow quadrant, I immediately knew that I wanted to be on the I quadrant. I wanted to be an investor. I wanted to be a business owner. Why? Because you now are able to have passive income where your income is not dependent upon your active work. So as a business owner, you now have systems and people working on your behalf. Any of us who have had a job, we were part of the B quadrant as part of the systems for that person making the money, where their income was not dependent upon their work. Have you ever worked a job and you're like, man, my CEO is always at the golf course while I'm here slaving? I know I said it, but that's because he positioned himself on the B quadrant, on the business quadrant, right? And so you have to ask yourself, and I tell people this all the time, it's not about the money. It's about the freedom that the money brings. It's about being able to say, I don't want to work today because I want to take my kids to Disney. Or I know for me, what really did it for me is that it was something that I really needed to take care of personally, and my boss did not want to let me off work. And I felt like I was too grown of a person to be controlled in that way. And I knew that working for somebody else was not for me. I knew at that particular point I had officially become unemployable. And so in becoming unemployable, you have to take drastic measures to make sure that you have all things lined up, because reality is entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It's not for everybody. And I will tell you, I don't knock anyone that has a job. If you love your job, I love that you love your job. I want you to keep your job. But what I do not want is for you to have your job as your only source of income. And then even with that same thought process, every time that you get paid, you should be investing in something. Many people are familiar with stocks. They want us to know about stocks, right? They don't want us to know about foreign exchange. They don't want us to know about cryptocurrency. So you should be asking yourself, if this is the stuff they didn't teach us in school, because mind you, I got a bachelor's and a master's degree, and they never talked to me about either one. Well, crypto wasn't out by the time I graduated. Well, it was out by the time I got my master's, but not my bachelor's. But this was stuff they didn't talk about. They never talked about the foreign exchange market and all these places. They talked about the places that they can control. You see what I'm saying? And so you have to ask yourself, when those things come up, how can I position myself? You have to ask yourself, this doesn't seem familiar. This looks like something I've never seen before. A poverty mindset thinks stuff that they don't understand is a scam. And so you have to change your mindset, or it'll cause you to miss those windows, right? But what I want you to understand, and if you're tuning in and you do not have passive income, meaning income that you're able to create to work for you even when you don't show up, I want you to inbox me, DM me, comment on this live. I'm going to be doing an exclusive webinar to show you all just how I position myself for residual income and how I can assist you in doing the same thing if it's a desire of yours. Remember, this is not about your passion right now. This is really about survival at the end of the day, because there are certain things that you can do that will make you money, but then there are certain things that you can do that will accelerate the making of money. I've been on both sides of those things. And so, as I mentioned, it's not about your passion, but what can I do to start to create the life I desire to have, and then start delving into my passion long term. And so that's what you really have to ask yourself, because for me, I love the fact that whether I'm in North Carolina or Tennessee or Detroit or Georgia, wherever I am making money wherever I am. My bills are covered wherever I am. I don't have to ask anyone to go to the bathroom, or if I can take time off. That's just what freedom looks like for me. I don't know what freedom will look like for you. Only you can answer that. But I can guarantee you that just having a job and nothing else is very risky, and it's not going to create the freedom you desire. Remember, your boss is never going to pay you enough to be their neighbor. If you want to be your boss's neighbor, you're going to have to do some other stuff outside your boss. Period, at the end of the day. Because in that job, they're going to tell you what they think you're worth. But when you position your own self, you determine your worth. So remember, if you have residual bills, you should position yourself to have residual income. DM me if you want to join in with me. I'm doing an exclusive webinar for the first 10 people. Exclusive webinar for first 10 people who are like, okay, Camille, I've been watching you. I've been seeing you win. I've been seeing you thrive. I've been seeing you helping other people. I'm ready to position myself to create residual income, to build a legacy for my family. But it's deeper than your family. Like, legacy is about who will remember you across the board. You see what I'm saying? And so it may not even be your direct family that will benefit from your yes of positioning yourself. You see what I'm saying? So what I encourage you to do is make a decision to position yourself to hear information that could totally change the life, not just for yourself, but your family and everybody connected to you. So remember, if you have residual bills, but you don't have residual income, it's definitely time to position yourself. I would love to talk to you and connect with you. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. God bless.